Morning, everybody. Okay, I'm so happy there's a lot of people turned up today, so thank you very much for attending. So today, I am going to speak to you about sustainability in packaging, and specifically for premium products, okay? So just first, I don't have the clicker. I will be back in a second. Thank you. Okay. So first of all, just a little introduction into myself. So I'm Julie Elder. I've been working for WestRock or Smurfit WestRock for the last 3 years. My role at WestRock or Smurfit WestRock is basically the sustainability leader for Europe. I am now concentrating on consumer packaging, and basically I'm the one-stop shop for sustainability. So regulations, carbon reduction, all recyclability. So everything you think of when it comes to sustainability, I'm your man, okay? So let's get going. Okay, so true sustainability. So when we think about sustainability, we talk about packaging sustainability, we talk about recyclability, but true sustainability is everything. It's the end-to-end process. So everything from the landowners that we use to grow our forests, to the mill systems, to our conversion sites, to the products that we then convert and sell to our customers. Sustainability encompasses everything, and it is everyone's role to understand sustainability and also adapt to the pressures that we're all facing when it comes to sustainability. Okay, so here at Smurfit WestRock, we have an approach when it comes to sustainability. So this approach has been worked on for many, many years, and we feel that we need to have a good ethos when it comes to sustainability, but also a standard approach. So it allows all of our colleagues and all of our teams to talk about sustainability in the same voice. So we have this under the guise of Better Planet Packaging. And basically, Better Planet Packaging, it's a very groovy name, but we look to do 3 things with Better Planet Packaging. So we look to educate, we look to design, and we look to implement. Okay, so 3 very simple points. But basically, as you can see, sustainability is encompassing the total business. And because of that, it is very, very important that as a business, we speak with one language when it comes to the sustainable topics that we all know and love. Okay, 48% of consumers worldwide look to the manufacturers to take the lead when it comes to sustainability, okay? So sustainability is extremely complicated. What can we do to make things more sustainable? Consumers worldwide want to be more sustainable, but they don't know how to do it. And in fact, how can they do it when the products they buy are sometimes unsustainable? So we think that this is very, very important, and so we want to take the lead when it comes to sustainable packaging, so we can make the decisions, we can set the standards, and we can set the process to enable our customers to have an easier ride. Okay, so the first section I'm going to look at is something that we all probably talk about on a daily basis, or at least I do. It's the external pressures we're facing, not only in the beauty industry, but in the packaging industry in totality. So here are just a few on the stage, and as you can see, they are all regulatory based. So I think you'll all agree. The regulatory environment for packaging and also for the world is absolutely changing. And what we've seen over the last few years is governments implementing new regulations. Specifically here in the European Union, they are kind of leading with regulation. And the reason for that is because how can we all choose the same approach if there is no regulation to govern it? So we look here on the slide here. So there's just a few of the big ones that I kind of talk about daily. So we have the European Green Deal. So this is kind of the overarching policy, the starting point for sustainability. So the Green Deal, the aim of the Green Deal is to reduce Europe's impact on greenhouse gases. And the idea is we will become carbon neutral by 2050. Now, obviously, that's a huge aim, and there are many, many industries forged within it. So what are we doing in packaging? So packaging is leading with its own regulation, the PPWR, Packaging Waste Regulation. So this regulation, it's been discussed for many years, and the previous guise of PPWR was the PPWD, which was the directive. And what happened was, no one actually implemented the directive because it was too hard and change was too unknown. So it was kind of upgraded to a regulation. This regulation was discussed in 2022, and we're waiting currently for the European Parliament to pass it finally within the European Commission. So we estimate that to happen later this year, maybe late October, and then we expect it to enter into force in 2026. Sounds like we have a lot of time, but as you know, packaging development takes a lot of time. So as a company, we feel we need to understand PPWR in great detail so we can advise not only our customers, but our internal colleagues as well. And we also need to ensure that our packaging fits in with the regulation at the same time. So there's a huge amount of work associated with understanding PPWR and implementing PPWR. The next point on the stage is EPR, which is Extended Producer Responsibility. And part of PPWR is the implementation of a taxation, the EPR tax. Now, what we are seeing happening is the EPR taxation is now different in many different countries, but the taxation will really try and financially drive home change through packaging, and it will standardize the way that we all see and develop our packaging. So going forwards, we will all need to know how to develop sustainable packaging. The next one I mentioned today is the green claims. So this is a directive which is still undergoing some discussion. However, it is likely to happen later this year and then again entry into force in 2026. Now, what's interesting about green claims and why I do a lot of work on green claims is because it is going to manage and standardize the way we can talk about our products. So now, not only do our products have to be sustainable, but we also have to talk about them in a standard approach as well. So both go hand in hand, especially when we're dealing with marketing, we're dealing with products, we're dealing with communication to the end user as well. We have to be very, very careful about what we can say and what we do. So green claims for me, it's the next PPWR. I think we're going to be talking a lot more about it in the coming years. And the final one I'm going to mention today is the European Deforestation Regulation, or the EUDR. Now, basically, a more technical regulation, but it's something that's happening right now. It is likely that we need to be compliant by December of this year. Now, as many of you may know, there's a lot of discussions within European Parliament which is requesting more clarity. So there are a couple of elements which have not been confirmed, and compliance is up in the air. It's a bit of a crazy situation. But EUDR will basically stop the European Union's impact on global deforestation. So this is good, this is what we need. But how we go to manage it is going to be quite stressful for our industry. But essentially, we will need to trace our raw materials all the way from the farmers that we manage, all the way to the end component that we produce. So there is a huge amount of complexity when it comes to IT, huge amount of complexity when it comes to education, and also complexity for our product as well. So there is a lot of work going on in the background, not only for EUDR, but for all of these regulations. And I think, if we are to talk about the trends and emerging trends within packaging, I think you have to talk about regulations these days. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit more about PPWR and why it came about. So we all know about, the blue planet. We know about climate change. We know about the pressures that are building within our consumers. We have Greta Thunberg. She was, advocating a lower carbon footprint. She was advocating lowering the temperatures of the Earth. This pressure was rising. And basically, the European Commission recognized this, which is why the PPWR was created. So we need to legislate to be able to make change. And actually, if you think about it, maybe it's a bit of a sad way to go, okay? So we're each in control of our destinies, each in control of our products, so why do we not want to be sustainable? So the way I see it is, we all have an opportunity to make our products sustainable. And actually, instead of waiting for this legislation to make the change for you, you can make that change now, okay? So PPWR, it looks to legislate in a few different ways. Summarized, very top level here. If you've read PPWR regulation, you will have been sitting there for about 3 days reading, because there's so much text. But in summary, it looks to reduce the packaging waste that we all put into circulation. Okay, so that's number one. The first thing and best thing we can do is to prevent the waste altogether. Okay? The next thing is to make all of our packaging recyclable, okay? So if we have to create that waste, it must be recyclable within the infrastructure within Europe, okay? Number 2. The next one is increased use of recycled plastics. So this is increasing the recycled content of our materials. So we get lots of questions about this on a daily basis. We want our packaging to be more sustainable, so we want to increase the recycled content of our board. Actually, when it comes to fiber-based packaging, essentially, you may not make it more sustainable. So we have this ongoing discussion about virgin and recycled fibers within fiber-based packaging. And actually, sometimes it is better and more sustainable to stay with 100% virgin. So that's definitely something to think about when developing fiber-based packaging. All of the targets within PPWR are for recycled plastics. So all inclusion targets only relate to plastic. Okay, so that's a very important point. The next point is a harmonized legislative labeling system. So as I spoke about green claims, we're going to have to talk about our products very, very simply. Okay, so claims such as my product is recyclable may not be allowed after 2030. Okay, so how on earth are we going to be able to sell our products? All we will be able to do is define the material that that product is made of. And this harmonized labeling system will do that. It's going to be based on the Scandinavian system, and there will be a pictorial picture of the material so the consumer will know how to dispose of that piece of packaging. And because everything has to be recyclable, it will be recycled. Okay? So that is how the labeling system will work. The last point as well is there are going to be bans for different formats within the packaging industry. I think it's a good thing because it shows the severity of the regulation, and I think if we really want change, we all have to realize that severity is going to increase over time. So I think it's excellent that there are some bans, although obviously if we're in an industry where those bans are, it's not so great. But we need to think innovatively and sustainably to ensure that we comply to both the PPWR, but also the European Deforestation Regulation as well. Okay, so just a little bit further. So who is PPWR going to impact? In fact, it's going to impact every stage of the supply chain. So everyone from the raw material to the consumer will be impacted in some way by the regulation, okay? So what does it mean? And what does it mean from my perspective working at a fiber-based packaging company? So it means that I need to make sure that my teams understand what's going on with the regulation so we can ensure that what we are offering our customers will fit in with this regulation should it come around. So most important thing about PPWR and at the heart of this regulation is recyclability. We need to make sure our products are 100% recyclable. Okay, so we are doing an awful lot of work at the moment to explore all of the kind of the bits that may not be recyclable. So there's a lot of work going on in the background so we can then advise our customer base when it comes and when we need to prove recyclability. Again, the taxation is going to help drive this change, so it's definitely a major part. How the EPR taxation is going to be calculated is still unknown at this point, and as I say, the complexity between country to country is going to really, really drive the complexity of PPWR as well. So it's something that we need to take into consideration. So where is the product made? Where is the end market? Okay. Next slide. Okay, but I will mention this. So back to basics. Why do we need packaging to begin with? So we need to make sure we have packaging to protect our products. That is the most important role of packaging. It's what we get taught on day one of packaging school. You know, we need to protect and preserve our product. So packaging absolutely has a use. You know, we talk about these regulations. We need to have it recyclable. We need to reduce it. Yes, but we still need it, okay? So absolutely bear that one in mind. And when it comes to beauty packaging, we absolutely need it. If we think about the perfume bottles, the glass bottles, we need to ensure that those glass bottles get to the end consumer intact, but also in perfect condition, so the end user can enjoy that product as it's meant to be enjoyed. So it's the most important thing, and I think when we all get sucked into these regulations, we sometimes forget we must protect. Okay, so the next part of this presentation is going to look at translating the pressures. So we call this the design section, and essentially what we've done in the first section is we've educated. So we've taken these complex subjects and we've created a method of how our designers can design to ensure compliance to the regulations. Okay, so just a couple of things. This is the tools of change, okay? So we've been using this over the last year or so to try and get our teams to understand what we can physically do right now to make our packaging more sustainable. So the first one is a reduction. Now, this is so simple, and people have been saying it for years, but it's still the single most impactful thing that you can do. So if you reduce the weight and size of your packaging, not only have you reduced the overall problem of packaging waste, but in turn, you have also reduced cost, possibly. You've also reduced the carbon emissions associated to that carton. So there are many, many benefits of reduction, okay? So number one, reduce. We also look at the empty headspace. So there is a target within PPWR that minimizes the headspace, and the target is you are not allowed to exceed 50% headspace within that pack. And when we look at the more premium packaging, sometimes that can be challenging. So we've created a tool with the design teams, and they can automatically calculate the headspace within that carton. So sometimes when you have a bottle and it's a strange shape, it's very hard to do. But we've managed to create a tool to ensure we can estimate what this headspace is, and where necessary, we can reduce it. Another thing as well is to just reduce and eliminate all unnecessary elements. So sometimes when we add ribbons, magnets, these type of things will render that piece of packaging unrecyclable. So we've been thinking up really innovative ways to change the way that we can kind of close our packs and add embellishments in a sustainable manner. Recyclability, so the next one, recycle. This is a big subject at the moment, and as some of you may know, it is a changing one as well. So the standards for recyclability, the testing methodology for recyclability is all under discussion at the moment. So it's part of PPWR, and in 2025, we expect the Design for Recyclability guidelines to be published, and this will give us a clearer way of how to make our packaging more sustainable. But when we talk about recyclability, the target is it must be recyclable, okay? So by 2030, all of our products will have to be recycled. So as I say, we're doing a lot of work at the moment to try and understand that further, but also liaising with our industry bodies as well to be part of the overall industry discussion on how to define recyclability for fiber-based packaging. So there is so much happening on recyclability. We then talk about replacement. So another thing that we can help with is we can help to replace less sustainable materials with more sustainable materials. In some instances, and in some of the products that you will see on our booth, we have replaced plastic fitments with fiber-based alternatives. So we feel that that is a very sustainable move. And if you look at the total packaging concept in totality, it will be one single material, therefore it will be recyclable, and therefore it will be more sustainable. So replacement is a big area for us as well. And then the last point there is reuse. So we talk about reuse as kind of the next step. So this is kind of circularity. So how can we reuse our fibers? How can we ensure we get that fiber that's part of that piece of packaging back to a recycling mill and then back into a product? So when we talk about reuse, it's only of the fiber. So there's a lot of work going on in the background, and obviously we have the recycling business as well, which is doing huge amounts to understand recyclability further. So I see reuse as the future, and definitely we'll be here maybe next year to talk more about circularity as a single subject as well. Okay, so just some examples now of how we've implemented these tools for change. So there's some samples at the front. You can also see them on our booth as well, but there's some pictures on the slides above. So this carton is very, very clever. So we've gone and we've kind of cartoned a tube or a triangulated product. But what it does is this carton not only is delivered in flat pack, so therefore we can maximize the number of cartons per case, but it also can be shingled in the shipping packaging to the consumer, and it enables us to reduce the carbon footprint for transport and transportation. So it's a very, very clever way of having a carton, but reducing it massively. So an excellent innovation by our team. On the same theme, this is a hybrid box. So we do a lot of rigid boxes, we do a lot of folding cartons, and this one specifically is very sustainable because it is flat pack. So when we deliver it to our customer, again, we can maximize the transportation, we can maximize the number per pallet, therefore reducing the transportation costs and carbon emissions associated. So we're going with the theme, flat pack is good. Okay, another folding carton here, this one for the premium beverage, and we actually won an award yesterday for this carton, so well done to everyone involved. But this carton, if you look at the premium wines and spirits industry, we look very, very premium packaging. So we have lots of rigid boxes, we have embellishments, we have beauty. But these guys were brave. They were brave enough to go with a folding carton to minimize where possible the amount of packaging. They've also used windows to see the products, and it's just an excellent innovation. Even though very simple, it still works, okay? So it emphasizes the need for packaging, but at the same time, sustainability is absolutely achievable. This is an example, again, of a premium rigid box. So we've done a lot of work on rigid boxes. As I say, they tend to be our most premium type of packaging that we produce. So we've looked to reduce the embellishments. So we removed the labels and the magnets. And here you can see we have a friction fit closure, so no magnets needed. We also have replaced the plastic fitment, and you can see there is a paper pulp-based fitment within this box as well. So this is all one single material, so it can be thrown away in the fiber-based packaging disposal system. And then probably, I think the simplest thing that we've done, but also the cleverest, we reduced the size of the box, okay? So we brought it down about 10 millimeters, and not only does it mean we can maximize shipment within the pallet, but it means we've reduced the weight, we've reduced the amount of material it has taken to produce this product, and at the same time, we've also reduced the carbon emissions associated. So just very, very, very simple changes have allowed us to make a sustainability benefit for this product. Okay, so that's kind of a few examples of the products, and just to show you how our process is working from a sustainability perspective. The last pillar of Better Planet Packaging is implementation and support. Okay. So basically, sustainability should be at the heart of every development. Okay. Now, as we know, it's extremely complicated, and especially when you have the regulations, you have the customer need, you have the cost element. What on earth do you do? So we've tried to create a guideline, some areas of sustainability that we need to concentrate upon when we are doing the development work for our customers. So first of all, resource efficiency. So not only is this the amount of fiber we use, but it's also how our mill system operates, how our conversion sites operate, how we can do more with less. So this is energy, this is water, this is reducing the carbon emissions at our sites. All of those things, all of those big things that we are doing as a business will benefit you when it comes to conversion of packaging. We need to ensure our packaging is fit for purpose, and this is where the reduction element does come in. But again, we need to have packaging because it reduces the damage to products inside. But ensuring packaging is fit for purpose is very interesting because the purpose is always different for every piece of packaging, okay? Next one is recovery. So we need to make sure that that piece of packaging can be collected, can be recycled, and then can get back into the packaging waste stream as a primary piece of material again. That is absolutely key, and that is where the 100% recyclability will come in. End of life, we've mentioned it a few times, but we want to ensure all of our material is fiber-based packaging, and therefore goes out into the fiber-based disposal system and is recycled as fiber. That is our biggest goal. And again, we need to use fit-for-purpose materials. So this is the materials that go into the end packaging. So there's so many options and so many things that we need to be thinking about when it comes to the development of packaging from a sustainability perspective. Okay, So this last slide is very interesting. So it's balancing your sustainability goals. So what we've realized is you can't standardize sustainability. It's actually impossible. Sustainability is so complicated. There are so many different aspects of it, and everyone wants a different thing. So some of our customers will want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Some of our customers want to be recyclable. Sometimes they don't go hand in hand. So it's so important for us to understand what our customers want first and foremost to ensure that the product that we develop is not only sustainable, but is what is required for the marketplace. And these are the areas of sustainability we kind of look at when doing that. So what we need to do as a business, and when we talk about implementation, it is those initial discussions with our customers that are vital so we can understand which area of the development process we will drive forward first. Okay. Okay, this is my last slide, and I will open for questions. But you can have it all. Beautiful packaging can also be sustainable. And I know what I presented today is somewhat simple, but sustainability is simple, and we want to help. So we want to have those discussions with you. We want to understand what you mean by sustainability, because we have the tools to be able to make your product sustainable. Okay. And with that, I say thank you. So thank you very much today. I open for questions. I think we have a microphone. Yes.
You mentioned that virgin fiber can be more sustainable. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, sure. We get asked this question all of the time, virgin fiber, recycled fiber. So obviously it depends on, the supply chain of that specific virgin fiber. But what we do with our virgin fibers is we ensure that the forest land that we manage is farmed sustainably. So not only do we ensure good forestry practices, but we ensure that is efficient from an energy perspective as well. So we know that the virgin fibers are just as sustainable as the recycled fibers. And another point I will also make as well, virgin fibers are stronger than recycled fibers. And so when it comes to the end product, what you tend to have to do with the use of recycled content is increase the weight. And so you then take out all of the carbon reductions that you've kind of maybe achieved by moving to recyclability. So it is absolutely a balance. And the way I see it is it should be done on a product-by-product basis, mill-by-mill basis. We can't just assume one is better than the other. But hopefully that answers your question.
Hi, Julie. Andrea Ennis from nonprofit Canopy. I just want to build on that question a little bit more and kind of dig into the carbon implications. So studies have actually shown that even when you account for the collection, processing, and transportation involved in paper recycling, it doesn't actually compare to the massive biogenic carbon loss that results from logging forests, especially high carbon value forests, whether FSC or PEFC certified or not, that are especially important for biodiversity. So it's just that oftentimes we see very selective carbon accounting that's used in a lot of LCAs that doesn't account for this biogenic carbon. So it kind of looks on the surface as though recycled fiber has a bigger footprint, but accounting for that biogenic carbon is it tells a different story. So that's more of just a comment. But my question I wanted to ask was about a third option that producers and brands have at their disposal, and that is next generation alternative fibers that utilize agricultural waste like wheat and flax and or rice and barley straw, or on-purpose crops like flax and hemp. And I wanted to know whether Smurfit Westrock has used any of these alternative fibers, or do you have plans to utilize them in the future? Because we know a lot of brands, we work with almost 1,000 brands, including some of the biggest users of paper packaging globally. We know that a lot of them are looking to move away from virgin forest fiber and want to see producers incorporating these next-gen alternatives.
Okay, so as a business, I do know we are exploring other fibers. So mainly for our special packaging division. So this is more kind of very, very small volume production runs, maybe more premium. We are exploring that, and the stories that they tell are obviously very, very interesting to us. But I think when it does come to sustainable packaging, and I reiterate the points that we've made, it comes down to how that land is managed, how that mill is operated, how the mill is fueled, and every mill is absolutely different. So one of our major mills supplying the European market is 80% biomass, so we've been able to fuel that from a renewable fuel. So I think yes, I totally get the point, but it absolutely comes down to mill by mill, product by product. When we look at next generation as well, I think as an industry we have to look at it because, something doesn't always stay the same. Change always happens. So I think the new materials, it is definitely something that we will look at. And I've seen a couple at this show today and yesterday as well. I think, they're up and coming. There is more available. So I think we need to understand what's coming. We need to understand how we can be agile enough to bring those materials in. But you're right. I think we need to understand the carbon footprint. We need to understand the material. We need to understand, is that material stream sustainable? Is that material stream available en masse? Where is the stream? There's so many opportunities, but I think you're right, yeah. But thank you for the points. Any more questions? No? Perfect. Well, thank you all very much.